All right. It's been about, a week now? A week since the last review I did because I just finished Dante's Inferno in about a week. That's a third of the Divine Comedy. It's the most famous book. I think a lot of people have heard of Dante's Inferno. They probably haven't heard the Divine Comedy. I say that because that was my situation. I think a week ago I was like, wow, I just opened this Divine Comedy and didn't realize that this is the series that Dante's Inferno is a part of. I had just heard the name Dante's Inferno. I didn't know what kind of book it was. I didn't know it was from the 1300s, the very early 1300s. I didn't know anything about it. Just that a lot of people like to name their kids Dante, probably after this book. So yeah, the Divine Comedy is all three of Dante's poems, right? Starting with Inferno, then Purgatorio, and then Paradiso. So I'm just going to review the Inferno for now. It's the most famous one, and it's also the one where you can actually pull up a lot of the kind of like notes, right? Cliff notes. This is important. So basically, similarly to the meditations, I needed some supplementary material online to get through this. The book is translated into English, but the English I think is from the 1600s, and it reads in a poem, kind of verse by verse. So it doesn't, I ended up, finishing each canto, kind of knowing what was going on, but there were some holes, and so these cliff notes are super helpful. Just like with the meditations, I would read the canto and then I would read the cliff notes on the canto. The summary is super helpful, but so is the analysis, because this book's been around for 800 years almost, and there's been a lot of study that goes into it. But let me jump into my notes and what I wanted to discuss in this review. Book was written in 1308, so literally a year before is when the Knights Templar were essentially rounded up and executed or exiled. The Crusades the success of the First Crusade. I don't know about the Second Crusade because I don't know when the second one happened. But the successes of the First Crusade, which is when, 250,000 Christians went down and seized just about every town past Byzantium in the name of Christ. They took them all from the Turks and the Saracens. Most of those cities were falling back into the hands of the Turks or the Arabs or the Saracens. So I think by 1308, the Crusader states were mostly gone, or we had lost a lot of them, and the Levant was probably no longer under Christian rule. But Dante doesn't really talk about that so much as he talks about the local politics of the Italian peninsula. The Italian peninsula at the time. I'm hesitant to use the term Italy because I'm not actually sure that Italy was a country at that time. I don't think it was. I think you had city-states and regions in the Italian peninsula. And Dante was from Florence, and my goodness, is there a ton of tidbits about politics from those days in this book. And I probably would not have picked up on that at all if it were not for the Cliff Notes. So it was good in that way to have the supplemental material, but a lot of what Dante talks about is about local politics of his time. Like I said, I didn't realize the Divine Comedy was the Dante's Inferno and the series. I essentially thought, that sounds like some kind of Shakespearean comedy thing. I'm sure it's good. The SDL put it in the list of the book subscriptions, so I'm sure it's worth it. And just kind of assumed it was going to be funny. But it's most definitely not a funny book. You're not going to laugh. The word comedy, at least back then, actually wasn't referring to like what we think of comedy today. So it was appropriately titled, but today, if you've never heard of this book before, like I had, don't be confused. It's not going to make you laugh. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. By the fourth or fifth canto, I knew that I was going to keep reading it and kind of be hooked on reading it because it does, it does flow like a story, like a narrative, just like the books Awaken the Nightland flow, just like any novel flows, the missionaries, all that other stuff in the library. The exception of the meditations being very lecture based. which was hard. So this book was not hard to get through in that way. It was very enjoyable to read, Dante's Inferno, but I needed the supplementary material as well. I'm going to discuss a couple other things that I like, and I probably will try to do a video for Purgatorio and Paradiso just like this one. The reason I stopped here, though, I wanted y'all to see these cliff notes. If you're going to read this book and really study it, you really should read the chapters and then go into the summaries in the cliff notes. It is super helpful. And sadly, because Inferno is so much more famous than Purgatorio and Paradiso, cliff notes doesn't have a section on those two, and I'm going to have to look harder to find any kind of summary and analysis, for those two books. So we're going to see how that goes, because I'm going to be diving into them starting today since I'm done. But there's some things I wanted to mention that I thought were pretty interesting about this book, which may come into the realm of spoilers. So if you don't want to hear about them, you should jump off now. But here we go. There are a lot of characters from Greek and Roman mythology in this, and they're all in hell for the most part. I thought that was very fascinating, right? Because Dante is most definitely a Catholic. He's of a political party that believes in the papacy. He's very Christian, very Catholic, hardcore like they were back then, and yet so many characters from Greek and Roman mythology are in this book. I mean, it goes to show you that even with Christ existing, how much influence the previous pagan religion still has on this culture. And I think I mentioned this on Social Galactic. I think I posted, but not really many people saw it. And I don't know if this was done intentionally, but Castelia, I'm pretty sure the third book was Meditations, right? Let's see. I think it was. The second book was Meditations. The funny thing is, like, a lot of the Stoics in the intro to Stoicism, which was a very lecture-based history lesson on Stoicism, a lot of those folks are in hell. And they were specifically named in Dante's Inferno as the masters of knowledge. Like, just about every Stoic, I think Seneca, Epictetus, Epicurus. The only one I didn't see by name in the book was Marcus Aurelius, but they think that every single one of them was in some upper layer of hell, suffering in hell, but not very deep. And at some point, Christ, Dante mentions that because Christ died and went to hell, when he went to hell, he grabbed as many of these guys that were worthy as he could, as well as some of the Jewish philosophers who prophesied the coming of Christ. I'm pretty sure that's what I read. I mean, I have to go back and be 100%, but I'm almost positive that Dante mentioned that when Christ originally died and went down to hell, he rescued as many of these Stoics as well as the holy Jews who believed in Christ's coming. He took them up to heaven. So they had to suffer in hell for a time, but they did make it up to heaven. I'm pretty sure I read that. I did also think it was very interesting. Like, you're going to see, and I'm not going to name all of them, but you're going to see a lot of names that you're going to recognize that are in hell from stuff we hear about today. Namely, I saw Muhammad, and it is spelled Muhammad in the book because that's the Latin of Muhammad, but basically Muhammad is in hell. He's in a very deep layer of hell, and his crime is essentially being part of the schism of the Christian church. I guess Islam really tore into the Arab world. A lot of those Arabs were Christian, and with the rise of Islam, he was a major factor of the schism. In fact, I don't even think, and it's 1308 in this book, so I don't even think he mentions like any of the Eastern Church schism or the Orthodoxy or anything like that, but he specifically mentions Muhammad as being in hell, which I thought was interesting. Sadly, also Odysseus, who to many of us is probably a hero from the Trojan War, from the book The Odyssey and the Iliad, and the one who had to basically make a 15-year journey back home because he talked crap about the gods who helped the Greeks win over Troy. I guess. But I think he was basically in hell for, if I remember correctly, the crime was that he came up with the idea of the Trojan horse. I think that's what it was. So that was not good. And also Curio, who was the guy who basically told Julius Caesar, hey, you should really just cross the Rubicon. Like, F this Pompey guy, let's do this thing, and create a giant Roman civil war based on that. That man was also in hell. I do not believe Julius Caesar himself was in hell, but Curio was. And I don't know if the advice was... I don't know if he's in hell because he gave him that advice in particular, or if he gave him that advice from a bad place, like he wanted something bad to happen and he did it for nefarious reasons or malicious reasons, hence why he was in hell. But he was in hell, according to Dante. Also, I could not help but notice that they made specific references to alchemists, and I don't remember if that was because the alchemists themselves were practicing an art which was forbidden, and I don't know that it was, or if these specific alchemists were in hell because they lied and told certain people that they could turn metal into gold and then like gave them fake gold or whatever. Don't know, but there were some alchemists in there. I was always under the impression that Thomas Aquinas himself was an alchemist, so I'm sort of leaning on the fact that maybe it was that these alchemists were lying about turning stuff into gold and were not the kind of alchemists who were just trying to make medicine and basically were the chemists of their day. That's my review on the story. On the book itself, it is by far the biggest in the collection so far. It is the nicest looking, and if y'all don't know, I only do the $50 subscription. I do the cowhide. I don't do the goatskin one. The goatskin one looks awesome too, but this cowhide one is like, the blue is so shiny. It goes really nicely with the gold. The inside pages are beautiful. The cover is amazing. You can see it here. It really does look great. It's a bigger book. Honestly, in my opinion, it should be called a tome. It feels more like a tome than a book compared to the other three in the series, which are more like books. As of now, according to the Castelia website, there are 72 of these in stock. So if you are not subscribed and you have any interest in starting a leather-bound book subscription, the Castelia library is $50 a month. It is still very much in its infancy and seems to be highly successful. The books keep selling out. The Divine Comedy is... Here, let's see. It's not sold out, right? There are 72, but Meditations is definitely sold out. Missionaries has been sold out for a long time. I'm curious about Awake in the Nightland. So let's see. Oh, did I pass it? Let's see. Awake in the Nightland. It's definitely not sold out, and this book is really good too. There's 49 left, so you guys definitely still have time to get the latest two books. The first two are sold out. SDL did say that there's going to be new print runs, but that they're going to probably make them different color. So you're definitely going to know if they're part of the original series or not, if you're ever looking to sell the entire collection or just keep it. I will never sell it. I'm passing this down to my kids, but I will say... Not that anyone's still listening, but I have an extra copy of this. It's on its way. I did order it because I had a really good feeling about this book. So I have a second one. And if you're watching this video 6 months from now, I'm almost certain the Divine Comedy will be sold out by then, and you can contact me through my email, riteofpassage85@gmail, or on Social Galactic if you're interested in picking up a extra copy of the Divine Comedy. I will ship it to you, and I will not sell it for a lot unless there's high demand. I just want to kind of pay it forward because somebody else sold me the Missionaries, which allowed me to catch up to this awesome collection, and now I have every one of the books so far. So the book itself is beautiful. The pages are beautiful. It really, really does show how awesome Castelia Library is. The only thing that even comes close in my mind is Easton Press, and Easton Press is, while their books are really good, they are completely converged. They're releasing books on stupid stuff like Harry and Meghan, and they put colored photos in the books and on the covers. The old Easton Press prints are still available. They're worth picking up, but in my opinion, Castelia Library is it in terms of a tried and true, leather-bound collection for saving Western civilization. This is definitely it. I'm very happy with this book and with this story that I just read. I'm looking forward to diving into Purgatorio and Paradiso. I'm just concerned that I'm not going to be able to find supplementary material like these cliff notes that made this so much easier to understand. Because if it wasn't for this, I probably would have been very lost and a lot of the stuff would have just gone way over my head. Anyway, great book. There's a reason they used to make high school students read it. Of course, they don't anymore. It really does give you a depiction of what hell could possibly be like from the Catholic perspective. So, thanks for listening if you're still here, and we'll catch you on the next one.